Welcome, low ego action heroes. It's Debbie Levitt. Hi, from Delta CX. We are a full service CX and UX consultancy. We do projects, training, and consulting, but we don't always do CTS, words ending in that. Welcome. This is episode 186. It's been postponed like 17 times, so I'm so excited that it's actually today that we've got Darren. Hello, Ana Lucia. Before we bring in our super special guest, Darren Hood, because we're going to be talking about UX education, and he's got some slides that are in a PDF that I'm going to have to advance strangely. I want to remind everybody that we always give our thanks to the wonderful people, past, present, and future, and Darren included, who are donating to the YouTube channel in small and large ways, totally optional, but always appreciated. And Elena says, I want to see this one. I'm in back-to-back meetings. I'll have to watch the recording. Okay, remember, these are always archived on the YouTube channel. You should find it later. Just write Delta CX 186, and it should pop right up. And some people have asked me, where can I get stuff with Delta CX logos and some of our catchphrases? Don't forget, I've got the Delta CX shirt on today. We've got deltacx.shop if you would like to buy the things. So totally fun. Lots of our catchphrases, including meow, 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 design thinking sucks. Okay, so let's bring in Darren. And for those of you who are new to the world of Darren, who are you?
You know what? I'm gonna save that for the slides because I put it on the slide this time. So I'm gonna get my standard conference intro.
Very beautiful. We accept. Then okay, we don't know who you are yet. Why are you here? So I'm going to turn off the comments that come up on the screen so that they don't block Darren's slides. But Darren, let me ask you this: as people have questions, do you want me to interrupt you and let you know there are questions, or do you want us to wait until the end of the presentation?
This one is designed to take the questions at the end.
Okay.
I'm going to fly the first part of it. Just quick heads up. I'm going to fly through the first part because I just want to set I want to help us to level set. Then I'm going to go through the content, and then I'm hoping we've got a ton of time for questions, and there'll probably be a lot of questions. And I structured it to facilitate Q&A. So I'm expecting a lot of people to have some things to present, and we're ready and honored and excited to be able to give some of those answers today.
Okay, great. So just a reminder to people, since Darren is going to be taking questions at the end, try to ask specific questions. Don't write, what do you mean by that? Because he's going to be seeing your question 20 minutes later, and he won't know what that was. Hi, Malika. So let's flip over to this version of things, and I'm going to go put my cursor over in the PDF universe. Okay, I will advance when you tell me so. Go, Darren, go.
All right, so everybody, hello. My name is Darren Hood, and we're going to talk to you today. I did a you're getting my standard conference style approach on today, and I did a slight tweak on the title. I hope that's okay. Referring to this as optimizing evaluation of UX education resources. And there's going to be some off the beaten path stuff that I'm going to present. So, and that'll probably stimulate some questions. So that's great. But let's go ahead and dive into the content. We'll start off with a little introduction, talk about who I am. And I love how Debbie says that. Who are you and why should we care? Unless you say, I don't know if you still say it that way, but I always thought that was funny. So I like saying it that way. But a little bit about me, and then we'll give you the who am I and why should you care. I'm actually going to celebrate 28 years this year that I've been involved in what we normally refer to as UX, experience design, things of that nature. I always like sharing personal stuff because I think it's to sit up and listen to somebody talk about the topic at hand and not have some kind of personal insights. I think it does us a disservice. So I'm going to share some stuff as well, just a little bit, not much. But I basically got my 28th year in UX. I've got a UX related master's degree from Syracuse University, UX related master's degree from Kent State University. Yes, I like education. Contrary to popular belief, I didn't get these designs to help me to learn how to do UX. I was already doing UX when I did. Somebody said that. Can you believe that? Somebody said that. We said Darren chooses the educational path. No, I'm self-taught. Let's get that out there now. I was self-taught. I want to make sure. Say it with me. Darren was self-taught. Let's stop all the crazy stuff. But we'll explain some things about that. That'll fit into what we're talking about today. The World Usability Day logo is there because I'm always speaking at conferences and things like just all types of events that I'm a part of. I'm no stranger to speaking. I've actually literally have over 5,000 speaking engagements in the last 20 years. Not all UX, but still over 5,000, so no stranger to it. That's a picture of my beautiful wife, Angela, who she was working from home, but she just left, so she doesn't hear it today. She'll watch the recording later. I'm a big photographer. I love photography. That's why you see one of my favorite cameras there. My wife and I love cats. We have 4. That's one, Rocky, one of our little ones, who is, that's a picture from the Michigan Humane Society calendar. He was there, so we love our cats, and I love bicycling. I actually lost 100 pounds once. I don't know if you knew about that, Debbie, but I lost 100 pounds, and a great deal of that was due to bicycling, and looking forward to getting going with bicycling. I just had surgery. I'm fresh out of surgery, and I got to wait. They told me not to do anything that's jarring for the next couple of weeks, so no bike riding for 2 weeks for me because of the bumps that we get. And I love bowling. I'm also a former PBA member. I was a Professional Bowlers Association member, so I love doing that. So there's a little bit about me and my personal interests. We can go to the next one.
Yep.
And I want to talk about my professional footprint. We're not going to spend any time here. I like showing this just because of the breadth that's here. I actually saw somebody once talk about they were like taking a pot shot at me, and they showed their professional footprint. It had 2 logos on it. I don't know why they bothered doing that. If that's your footprint, that's your footprint. No big deal. But this is mine. So again, who am I and why should you care? I do have a lot of experience across a lot of different types of companies as well. So that's going to sort of factor a little bit into what we're going to talk about today as well. And yes, Debbie, you are represented there. There's Concentric.
I saw Concentric there. Thank you. What an honor.
But here's the twist. You saw my UX experience. You saw my UX experience, but here's my educational professional footprint. So I actually have more experience in education than I do in UX. I trained someone for the first time formally in 1983. So I go all the way back. I'm a certified instructional designer. I've got 5 instructional design certifications, 5. Certified CBT and web-based training designer. I'm a certified master trainer. I'm a certified instructional technologist. I'm an adjunct university professor. I actually just let one of my professorships go. I'm actually looking to start scaling back a little bit, and so I'm down to 5.
Oh, can I have it?
You might not like that one. We'll talk about that later, but you might not
Oh,
like that.
then I know
one.
who that is. Okay, go on.
Yeah, no, it's actually a different one.
Okay.
It's a different one. There's some other things I'll share later with why I let another one go. But I just let another one go because it wasn't UX, and it was taking too much of my time. So just people know I need to learn how to. I want to do too much. My heart's too big. Gets you in trouble sometimes. All the big-hearted people know what I'm talking about.
The audience feels, yeah, I just know it.
And I am also a doctoral candidate. I'm in the dissertation phase now, and I'm got roughly basically months to a year or so before I'll be able to join Dr. Nick and I'll be Dr. Darren. So, well, we'll see. But I do have my educational footprint. This is not. Don't you hate when people talk about? I'll be a little conversational from time to time here, but don't you hate when people say opinion when there's a difference between opinion and expert opinion? So I'm trying to help establish. I'm trying to help establish the fact that the things that I'm going to be sharing with you today are expert opinion. This is not somebody read an article and threw a couple of thoughts at you. There's a lot behind it, and so I hope people take that into consideration as you consider, because you're going to apply critical thinking to what I'm saying. You're not going to listen to me at face value. You're going to take it, go examine it, and you're going to even come up with some of your own conclusions based on some of the things I show, and that's great. As long as you engage in critical thinking, that's great. We're not trying to dictate anything. We're trying to put things out here for consideration. Next slide.
Now, Darren, I know we have a great relationship and you have a great sense of humor, so I can say something like, are there slides here that aren't about you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Here's one. No, but
Who's this guy?
but I have to. I mean, and I have to, especially because I have this thing that I jokingly call melaninitis. People don't like listening to informed Black folks, frankly. So I have to sort of really lay those things out so that hopefully I will achieve what I like to call MJ status. Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, ironically, same initials. When you show people the quality, they stop seeing the color. And unless if people don't stop seeing the color, they're not going to hear what I'm saying. So I have to show the credentials. I have to show the experience, trying to get them to go down that road. So, okay, let's get to the content and let's help everybody achieve excellence and forget about the color stuff. So here we go. Here we go with the content.
Cool.
When it comes to evaluating education, it simply is not something that we can just say, well, you know what? Okay, Darren, let's just talk about how we evaluate education. I wish it was that simple. We need to do it a different way. We need to, and when I talked about being a little off the beaten path, this is what I'm getting at, that we need to understand that there is an inherent problem associated with how we engage with education before we get to the gist of what we're talking about today. So let's in level setting, if you don't get it yet, just ride with me, say we have a problem. Let's look at it from that perspective. You can change. And understanding the problem with all of these different options that we've got. We have so many options today, but if we understand the problem, it's going to help serve as a key to successful engagement. Next. So framing the problem, we all did the same thing. And I don't know how many people consider this. And this, if you see me talk about this before, I did in another talk. I've talked about this a couple times. We all started out either in preschool or kindergarten. And from the time, pretty much, at least about 95% of people, the school we go to is presented to us. We don't have a say in that. What we study is determined for us. We don't have a say in that. And we don't realize that we're being programmed, which is funny because after we go through elementary school, junior high school, some people vocational school, when we're going through that, a lot of times, because things are chosen for us, we don't realize that we have zero skill in evaluating educational resources. Here's you're going to use this book. You're going to study this topic. You're going to do X, Y, and Z. And that's all fine and dandy initially, because as kids, we didn't know. We wouldn't have known. But the problem is it's something that automatically grows with us because we just don't know how to make the choices. Then when we can go to the next slide. As we go forward, when it comes to UX, now not knowing that we have this sort of time bomb thing going on, so to speak, cognitively, where we learn about UX. Next slide. You hear about UX. You're ready to take the plunge. Next. But you don't really know what to do. We've got all these options, all these thoughts, but it's a bit of an enigma. You can go to the next slide. Some people think they know. Next. But zeal can be a very misleading beast. When we have a ton of energy and we get excited, you see people all the time. Oh, I just graduated from so-and-so. I just got my certification from yada, yada, yada. Even degrees. I just got my degree. Did you really do the right thing? Did you really do so? For the people who have already gone through that process, for those that are in the position where you're trying to make decisions A lot of times, all you have is your zeal. That's it. All you have is your zeal, and zeal is misleading because zeal without knowledge equals shipwreck most times, and we don't realize that. So we want to make sure we're definitely framing that for you. Next slide. So this mindset is still an issue. We're used to people telling us what to do. We're used to people assigning something to us from a learning perspective and just going and doing that and not asking any questions. We need to advance beyond that. It's time for us to start being more deliberately involved. And that's when this evaluation and optimizing evaluation comes into play. And we're going to provide some insights to help everybody out with that. Next slide, please. So what I like to refer to this as a noise conundrum. Also, because on one hand, we've got the fact that we don't know how to pick certain things. I mean, you do when you go to college. Everybody has to pick a major. Nobody's going to make you engage in a certain major, but people still don't know. How many people have gone to school and end up doing what they went to school for? Not very many. And it's partially because we tried to make decisions and we weren't that informed, or we thought we knew and we didn't. And fortunately, some of us were able to parlay that educational experience into what we get into in the future. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. With UX, it does have to be deliberate at this stage, where when you've made a decision, you want to advance in UX, you want to learn more about UX, you want to get into UX, where do I go? Now you have to be deliberate. It's not going to be like what Debbie studied music and ended up being a UX guru. It's different. You and a lot of us actually fell into UX. So those of you today that are making these decisions, we're happy for you, because we did. Practically everybody who's been in UX over 20 years fell into it. You don't see people who, I mean, even Jacob Nielsen, Don Norman, and those guys, they were engineers. They were doing other things, and they fell into it. So you're able to make that decision today, then great. But know that there is a noise conundrum, and we want to get past all the noise. Now, here's an example of some of the noise. You can go to the next slide. Yep. Now, please note, this screen is not an endorsement of any of the resources that are showing. This is showing simply as an example. I'm a DuckDuckGo person. That's why you see that DuckDuckGo logo there. I don't use Google for much of anything. But if you go in and just type in learn UX, now this is what the type of thing a lot of people do when they decide that they want to learn UX, they want to get into UX. Okay, so they know that we're taught that, okay, if you want to go into X field, then I need to learn about it. So you do a search. What comes up? The first thing that comes up is an ad for Career Foundry. They paid for that.
Boo. Sorry, go ahead.
I used to manage keywords for one of the companies I worked for. I know how you sit there and you come up with the strategy. Okay, we want to pay for this. If somebody types in this, we want our company to show up. So they deliberately paid so that if somebody types in learn UX, that their ad is going to show up there, which is interesting to me, but I won't get into that because I'll go down a rabbit hole and I don't want to do that. Udemy did the same thing. They show up. That's an ad. The first non-paid result is the Google UX certificate. The next one that comes up is Coursera. They've got a few, of which Google is one. There's a few universities that have some programs associated with Coursera there. I can't see the one that's showing up under that. What is it? LearnUX.io.
LearnUX.io. Never even heard of it. And Anne is commenting. I know we're not asking questions yet, but Anne commented in the chat. She knows at least 4 people who got a refund from Career Foundry.
Nice, good. We should start something. I would love to have a website that said, get your refund from bootcamps.com or something, just to tell people how to go about doing it. But we'll touch on that a little bit. I'm sure some questions will come up about that. One of the other ones that doesn't show on the screen, the next result down that had there only been one ad, you would also see Interaction Design Foundation.
Ooh.
They show next. And so for people who don't remember, we're usually told what to do, where to go. We did that for all the way through high school. And now here we are trying to, whether we realize it or not, trying to, and we don't think about it, trying to, for the first time in our life, in many instances, make a deliberate choice about education and picking an educational resource. And when people are new to UX, they assume that everybody who's out here is legit, which is why Career Foundry will, because of this, they'll get a bunch of students. That's why people see Google, they think, oh, it's Google. Google knows what they're doing. No, not necessarily. Google is not an educational entity. They are not accredited. Just to show this out here now, they're not accredited. For those who didn't know, if you go through that program, you really don't interact with the instructors.
There are no
you don't
instructors. Well, okay, they're instructors, but yeah.
That the lessons that are presented were supposedly put together by instructors, but you don't. There is no student-teacher ratio. There is no such thing in the Google program. So, which is a factor associated with proper education. There's a student-teacher ratio. Sometimes it's greater. Sometimes student-teacher ratio is nil or NA. Then there's a problem. Matter of fact, everything that comes out, all the feedback in that course, and there's others just like it, it's all peer-based. So, and I don't want to I don't want to get off the beaten track because I found another rabbit hole. I'll go down it. But just to throw that out there right now, that's a bad value prop. But when you don't know, you don't know. And again, you're used to, okay, just go here, Jimmy, drop off Jimmy, Tammy, whoever, drop everybody off at school. You just go to school like little zombies. We didn't even realize it. We just run out to school like little zombies. There's the Imhotep thing. That's what we did.
Damn it.
That's what we did. So people aren't ready. They're not ready, and they're making choices. Even sometimes when people go to university, they go to university because parents made them go, or they go to university because that's the way they're programmed. No matter what resource a person chooses for education, it has to be based on a critical thinking process and landing upon a decision, a sound decision that you can be proud of and confident in. And that's what we want to help you do today. Let's go to the next one. So
sorry, I was putting the Darren Imhotep emoji up on the screen. Okay, go ahead.
So let's add some knowledge to our zeal. All these things said, let's add some knowledge to our zeal, and let's put everybody in a position where we can be better equipped to evaluate educational resources and make sound, confident decisions. Next slide. Now we get into the meat and the potatoes.
Yum.
Okay. So here's the process at large. Now we're going to spend most of our time on number 5 on this list today, but I still wanted to share this with you. You need to clearly identify your goals. Don't just go and do something. Don't just go enroll. Don't just sign up for the first program you find out. The first thing you need to do when you decide you want to get educated is to know you. It's amazing how many people they seek to be educated about something, and what they bring to the table is not a part of that soup, if you will. So you need to, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? And you may have to go back and revalidate those goals as well, because some people have goals that are not legit. I had somebody ask me on LinkedIn yesterday, so Darren, if this is some really bad content over here, what do you suggest for somebody who's trying to quickly ramp up and learn about X, Y, and Z? I said, well, number one, you can stop trying to be quick about it. and I'm just trying to get some quick tips. I said, stop looking for quick and look for quality. So that's an example real quick of your goal. If your goal is not advisable, if it's not a good way to approach, and you have to we have to be that's an emotionally intelligent piece there, an EQ piece, but we have to let go of goals that really are destructive in nature. And we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. Understand what your budget is, because willing to spend, what you want to spend, what you're prepared to spend is going to play a role in what you choose. Some people, we hear it all the time. I know we've talked about it before on the show. It's come up before, Debbie. The some people, and you hear it all the time. I'm not ready for a degree. I'm not trying to get a degree. I'm not trying to spend that kind of money. Totally get it. Understand it. Then make that part. That's part of your budgetary approach. You don't want to spend that money. Fine. There are solutions available for you. Please know you're going to have to invest something. Even if you go the self-taught process, you got to buy books. So, and then some people, they don't want to buy books. Well, you don't want to spend anything. The fast food industry needs people like you. So you're going to have to invest. You've got to
Ouch.
invest. There's no way around that. It's a harsh truth, but it's, I'd rather have an ouch than somebody than a jaw drop 10 years later because you didn't know. I'd rather see you surprised now than later, because if you try to do something later that's not advisable, it's going to hurt. And it always, hurt in a way that it might be irreversible. So I'd rather, we're not trying to win friends out here as much as we are trying to help people do the right thing. So sometimes got to be willing to say that. So I talked about that on my podcast this week too. It's being friendly. Your best friend is the one that will tell you what you need to hear, even when you don't want to hear it. So I think we all know what that's like. Realistically gauge what you're willing to invest. So this is sort of building on point two. Be realistic about it. This is where you come back and revalidate those ideas that you have, because it's not just about money. It's also about time. So, and like the one instance I mentioned in the conversation I had with somebody on LinkedIn yesterday, and the person wanted to do everything quick. Why are you trying to get there so fast? What's the big deal? I literally have heard people say, I'm trying to get there quick because in 6 months, such and such is going to happen. The discipline it's not going to move for you. It's not going to move faster because you're trying to do something. It's please, and we've said this often, you and me, Dr. Nick, we've all said this, a bunch of people, other people come on the show. Come into UX because you love it, not because you're chasing a check, and not because you're trying to get something done within X amount of time, because the discipline has no respect for our personal timelines. Be ready to play the long game, because you'll never arrive. No matter how you learn, you never arrive. 28 years from me, Debbie's up there in that same range, and we're still learning. We're still picking up. You never arrive. So don't, and we'll talk about hype in a bit, but when people tell you can learn everything in 6 months, they're selling you. That's the snake oil sales approach. And if they're doing that to you, that should be a sign that you should go the other way. They're going to take advantage of your eagerness, your zeal. So again, we're putting knowledge with the zeal, and that'll keep you from getting into some bad situations. We're going to talk about this in a little bit too. Consider all learning modes and identify where your needs and abilities are aligned. There are different ways to learn, different learning models, and we'll share what those are in a little bit. Again, we're going to spend all of our time at evaluate your options, so we'll break that down in a little bit. The last one here, please make honest and informed choices. A lot of people are making educational decisions. They're not informed, and they're not being honest with themselves, and that will come back to bite you. And if you're concerned about cost, you can't afford to go the wrong direction either, considering the fact that every decision you make is going to cost you something. It's always going to be a combination of time and money. It's never just money, and it's never just time. It's going to impact you. And so in order to be efficient, follow these steps, and it'll help you to make a good the best choice you can possibly make. And if you make a mistake, the faster you own it, the better off you are. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. The people who were getting that were mentioned there, getting the boot camp, I'm sure the refunds. I'm sure some of those people got the refunds before they finished. It's better to find out early. I've had people, I don't know, Debbie gets this too. They ask you all these questions, and you bend over backwards to spend time with them to give them all these answers, and then they do what they want to do anyway. And I'm like, wow, really? Okay. And he just, my hands are clean. I shared what and some of them have the audacity to come back 2 years later. I should have listened to you. Yeah, you should have. And now what? And actually, some people have done that. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater on that either. If that happened to you, own it, and let's go forward. No matter where you are in the journey, just let's go forward. Next slide.
Yeah, and I just want to remind people, just to add to what Darren is saying, if he doesn't mind, is that I can't tell you how many people say to me, I can't go take that course you're recommending. I can't buy that book you're recommending. I lost all this money on the boot camp I took or the whatever I did. And I say, okay, I'm sorry you did that, but now you're asking me what to do. And if your budget is zero, then, I don't really know of a lot of good resources for you that cost zero other than this YouTube channel. Everything else, as Darren pointed out, is probably going to cost you something, whether it's a book or an online course or one of my workshops or Larry's workshop or Dr. Nick's workshop or something like, we can't offer that much for free. So I think as part of your education, budget for future education. Oh, and God, and don't take these ISAs. These ISAs are predatory.
Oh, predatory. I got word that boot camps are on the verge of being labeled as predatory in California.
I hope so. They pretty much are. Did you want the next slide, by the way?
Yeah, next slide. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for letting me interrupt.
No, oh yeah, great stuff. Woo! So, educational options. Here are 5 different ways, 5 options available for anyone who is looking to up their game. And please note, this doesn't just apply to UX, because you always get the smart aleck that comes along and says that. We already know that. We're talking about UX, so let's keep everybody here. those people tickle me. You have the self-taught and the self-paced option. And please note that I have dollar signs shown here. The number of dollar signs indicates the investment money-wise that you have to invest in these. So the most expensive will be $5 signs. The least expensive is 1. So self-paced or self-taught is usually the cheapest way to go. And there might be, depending upon, I used to just say self-taught, but self-paced is different as well. There are some self-paced options out there that don't cost very much at all. And when I say very much, I'm talking $400 for a course, just to give some color to what I'm referring to with the dollar signs. Self-taught, again, you're reading articles on the internet, which used to be a wonderful thing to do. It wasn't always just the books. I know Debbie remembers these days. Do you remember web pages that suck.com? And because a lot of us, we used to learn how to do good design by studying bad design. Even when you look at Jacob Nielsen's old book on homepage usability, that book changed my career. It changed my life. He took 50 high-profile websites, performed a heuristic analysis on all of them, and ripped them to shreds. And that's how I learned how to critique websites, learning how to apply heuristics, more really fine-tuning it and sharpening my saw really tremendously from that perspective. But these days, you can't do it the way that we used to do it. So because there was practically no misinformation, you could go to almost any website and read almost any book prior to 2011, and it would always vault you forward. When you look at it today in 2023, there was somebody on LinkedIn who said something about sharing all of these learning resources that you could go to learn how to design better. And a lot of the resources that were shared were garbage. So we didn't have to navigate around that in 2007. In 2001, you would pick up a book from Jesse James Garrett and you study that book and you go and find ways to apply that stuff and you'd get better. And then you go back, you learn a little bit more, and you look at the Christina Watke books and you look at the Nathan Shetroff and Alan Cooper and a lot of these people, and it would always vault you forward. Today, I've seen books that are nothing but rehashes of old books. And it's really sad. And it's like, just go read the old book. There's one nameless book that, to me, it's a ripoff of Thinking Fast and Slow. I'm sorry, not Thinking Fast and Slow, Designing with the Mind in Mind. About to call it the wrong book. Designing with the Mind in Mind. Fantastic book. I was one of the manuscript reviewers for that book. And I told them the one thing I thought they should do is upgrade some of the graphics. Some of the graphics are a bit old. But outside of that, they do what you're supposed to do in a learning experience. And I'm going to talk about this again in a bit, but I'll throw it in here now. Any learning experience consists of three main components: presentation, application, and feedback. As we go through these different methods here, no matter which one of these you choose, you discover is best for you, there has to be presentation, application, and feedback. There's the presentation of the content. There's the opportunity for you and for me and for Debbie to practice what's there. And then there's feedback so you can find out how well you did and see what you need to do better and what you need to maintain. That's what the learning experience is. And it's repetitive, and you keep going through that cycle. If any one of those three components is broken, if the presentation component, if it's misinformation, then the value props over. And so that's where people lose. So you have self-taught, self-paced. Again, some people choose to go this way. This is pretty much all we had in 1995. Go get some books. 1998, Polar Bear book came out in 1998. And everybody gravitated to that. That was not the first book on information architecture. That just became the most popular one. And so there were other ones. There's still other ones out there now. Matter of fact, the one that impacted me the most isn't even published anymore. Written by a guy by the name of Earl Moreau. That was the one that he was just a really forward thinker, but the best stuff doesn't always get the most attention. So just no one understand that. You can still do self-taught and self-paced today, but please know it's inexpensive and it is immersive, depending upon how much time you invest. However, it is very slow. We all need to be patient no matter what, but just know that this is the slowest route. It's going to cost you the least amount of money, but it's also going to get you from point A to point B. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, but you're doing it at a snail's or a turtle's pace. So just be aware of that. That's not to discourage you. It's just so you know. Yes.
I'm just jumping in. We've only got one question in the chat, but remember, we only have 20 minutes left. So I'm not too sure how many more slides you have or time for questions. So just a quick time check for you there.
Okay, thank you. So you got what we call MOOCs, or massive online open courses. That's Coursera, Udemy, Skillshare, edX, Coursera. Those are called MOOCs. There are lots of options, but a lot of them are not very trustworthy, so you want to be careful with that. You have specialization certificates. They're offered through the universities, and then there's other general sources. I like Susan Weinshank's content. I love Cornell University has a certification, a UX certification, where they cover design and research, and it's only like $3,600, which I think everybody who's thinking about going to a boot camp because you don't want a degree, and then you end up paying something that the ROI prop is almost non-existent. Just go do Cornell. At least they're accredited. At least you're going to get to interact with real instructors and not somebody who graduated from the boot camp a week ago. And yes, that does happen frequently. So speaking of boot camps, they might be fast, but they're costly. They're cursory. They're very high level. They claim to be immersive. That's a joke. That's a buzzword, because they're not immersive at all. and there's tons of pedagogy problems. The courses are not structured well at all. I've spoken to a ton of boot camp attendees that said that, for example, when it comes to information architecture, which is critical for new people to learn, they barely scratch the surface and barely talk about it at all. They spend more time on your portfolios and other stuff like that. So they're like basically trying to microwave the learning experience. And if you try to live off microwave food, you know what's going to happen. So, at any rate, same thing. And then you got your degree programs, the most costly of the group, of course, but they are accredited. They're many times they are well structured, but they are expensive. One thing of note here, a factoid I think is really interesting, is that when it comes to universities, uh, do you realize that there's roughly somewhere in the vicinity of 7,000, just shy of 7,000 universities in the United States, just focusing on the states alone for this one. Do you realize that there are UX programs and there's no more than about 175 programs in the country? 175. That's really low percentage wise. So, and they're not all doing it well. So that's the problem now, is that they're not doing well with the way that they're structuring their programs. So that's just something else to consider. Next slide. Speed up a little bit here. So here are the things you need to evaluate when you're trying to make a decision. And some of these are applicable to all 5 of the modes I just mentioned. Some are not. Like if it's self-learning, there is no curriculum. You're just picking up books. You're actually devising your own path if you're going the self-taught route. So apply these where it's relevant. Make sure that it has a good curriculum and instructional integrity. So is it properly structured? Is the program designed to help you build skill and acumen? Now, here's the funny part about that. When you're new, you don't know. It's like, I don't know why when people are trying to make a decision about education, they act like they're trying to make a decision between Del Monte or Green Giant green beans, so to speak. You can do that. You can pick between things at a store that you're familiar with. When you don't know how to evaluate a curriculum, you're going to need help from somebody. And this is where not mentoring, networking can come in handy. If you're interested in something, run by. Yeah, look at that. Look at episode 127. What Debbie has on this, because it would help you. You need to know what you need to learn and helping you to make a decision. I know one university that on their page for their Masters of UX program says that you have to become a unicorn to be successful in UX. That's a sign that something is terribly, terribly wrong. That's a major red flag that folks should not go to that university. And I told somebody that, and they still enrolled at that university. After I told them that, I showed them that. And yeah, they did it anyway. And, so we do what we can do. And we do this stuff out of the kindness of our heart. Nobody's paying us. We're just doing this, and people blow us off. It makes it sort of thankless sometimes. I'm glad we love it. But at any rate, the study modes, this one's big. There are 3 study modes when you're doing most programs: asynchronous, synchronous, or bisynchronous. Asynchronous means you do it on your own time. Synchronous means that you have to meet at predetermined times, set intervals. You have to be present. And then there's bisynchronous, where sometimes you have set times, but most of it, the work is likely done on your own time. But there might be a meeting, a class meeting or something. So you have to know what works for you. Asynchronous is perfect for me because I'm busy. Somebody else might want to have that FaceTime, dedicated FaceTime. So take that into consideration. Credibility and transparency. Yes, they won't. David is 100% right. He's 1,000,000,000% right. That's a sign, let you know that the Google program isn't legit. They won't even hire people to go through it. What a telltale sign. When it comes to credibility and transparency, which the example that David just shared is a great example, they lack credibility and transparency. The integrity is not, it's wanting. So you don't want to invest there. Are they honest, and do they have a clear value prop? If they're honest and have a clear value prop, then they move up the ladder in what you're considering. If they don't, then you want to strike them from consideration. The cost plus the potential ROI. What is it gonna cost? And what can you realistically expect to get out of that? The cost to attend compared to the realistic potential gain. So keep that in mind. And then the last one, accreditation, credentials, and reputation. The accredited venues are always going to be the most viable. I know they're going to cost you more, but they're always going to be the most viable. They should be the most viable. Other elements that I mentioned here considered. Are they trustworthy? Can you really look to them to provide what they say they're going to provide? Or is it a sham? Is it based on hype? And are they pretty much just going to take you for a ride, which is what happens with a lot of people. So these are the 5 things, the areas that you need to evaluate. If you don't have the skill to evaluate it, look at your network and try to connect with somebody that show that Debbie mentioned, but connect with somebody that can help you out. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And we don't know what we don't know. The problem is that sometimes we don't know what we don't know, but we should have an inkling that we don't know and get some help. Get help when you need it. And that's going to be good for you. And we can go on to the next slide and we're going to wrap up quickly. So before making a decision about your educational resource, make sure you strive to know yourself. The 5 key areas to consider to evaluate: curriculum and instructional integrity, study modes, credibility and transparency, cost and potential ROI, accreditation, credentials, and reputation. Here are the things, we didn't talk about this, things that should not factor in: speed and time, popularity, this thing that I call brand romanticism. Oh, it's Google. Oh, then you imitate your way through it. No, 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 no. Don't do that. And hype. If they're hyping something up, hype is actually one of the synonyms of hype is deceit. They are hyping something up because they're trying to keep you from seeing something that if you keep your critical thinking hat on, you'll consider it and you'll exit off your list. We guarantee you a job. That's hype. We have the best instructors. Nobody knows who has the best instructors in general, but in general, the best instructors are going to be where they get paid the most, which is in the universities. So the best instructors are pretty much going to be there. When somebody said we have the best this, we have the best that, that's all hype. And you know the boot camps don't have the best instructor because a bunch of them graduated a week ago. So next slide. Here's a list of red flags: empty promises, misinformation, lack of realism. Any learning resource that says learn UX UI, just write them off your list, please. They're going to start off by introducing something that's not really a thing. Yeah, just strike them from your list. The program seems too good to be true. Short programs with no depth. Hidden curriculums. I've seen that too. You'll go and they say you're going to learn X, Y, and Z, but when you try to look at the curriculum to evaluate it, you can't see it unless you give them your email address, which means you're opting in to be, they want permission to spam you. So don't hide the curriculum. Don't do that. That's not good. The hook, line, and sinker thing, that's like hype, where it's a metaphor. It's referring to fishing. So the actual fishing, where they throw a hook out there, and then you get the hook, you don't realize that you're in trouble until you're on the hook, and by that time, it's too late. Hype with no substance, unskilled instructors, no opportunity to engage with instructors, lack of accountability, and peer-reviewed work only. That's all they're offering. You don't want that. Your peer knows as much as you. Why do you want somebody who knows as much as you grading your work? And that's what the Google program does, and that's ridiculous. Matter of fact, most, if not all, of the Coursera programs do that. So that's not good. Next slide.
Sorry, I muted myself. I just want to mention really quickly the unskilled instructors thing, and that's because a lot of people get confused by this, and this is also a bit of a bait and switch, or it's purposefully confusing. I say to people, did you look them up on LinkedIn? And they go, yeah, they have like 10 years in design. And I go, great, what kind of design? And they go like, yes. What do you mean? They're designers. And I say, well, give me their name. And I go to the LinkedIn, and very often I find that the person teaching UX design or UX UX research, when I look through their LinkedIn, has no UX design and no UX research background.
Yep.
They were a creative director or a visual designer or a brand designer. They found someone who said designer, and they're trying to make you think that they're all the same. So please learn who your instructors are going to be, look them up on LinkedIn, and look for extensive experience in whatever they're teaching. I mean, this sounds so obvious, but yet people don't look at it. They go, well, they're a designer. And I say, yeah, but there's like 9 zillion types of designers. So, if they're teaching you research, how many years of specialized research do they have? Look this up. Your mentors, your advisors, your tutors, your work reviewers, whoever this school or course is giving you, look them up. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
No, that's good. All good points. And it's funny too, because it started becoming popular to lie about one's experience and to fabricate and say that they had more experience than they did. In about 2014, you started seeing more and more people do that, especially developers and visual designers, art directors and creative directors claim that they've been doing UX for X amount of time. They haven't done anything associated with UX. And check to see too, if they look at when you look at somebody's profile on LinkedIn, go to their activity and look and see what kind of activity they're engaging in. Look and see what they posted. Look and see what they replied to. It tells you something about what they feel about the discipline and how much they're really dedicated to it. If you see nothing, many times it's because they some people just don't get involved. You don't get involved. But if somebody's trying to be a leader, there's going to be leader traits that are demonstrated consistently. And you see it. But when you see them and they're trolls, they're just trolling people and starting arguments and being vindictive and antagonistic, you don't want to learn from those folks. They have nothing to share with you. And we get trolled a lot, some of us. My recommendations, I do
Darren,
have
you got 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm there. I do have a up on the uxuncensored.medium.com where you can see different programs that I do recommend. You can see them there, and there's something to fit every budget. We have to talk about the self-learning thing later. There's a different way to approach that. Next screen. And it's the last tip for self-learners. Again, the key to optimizing self-learning, I mentioned presentation, application, and feedback. The key to self-learning, because when you're reading a book or you're looking at like Susan Weinschenk, is just you watch a bunch of videos. There is no interactive piece. So, but when you read a book, there's no interactive piece. Anybody remember going to college and sitting in the lecture hall, listening to a psychology lecture with 400 people? It's the key to optimizing self-learning is after you take in the presentation, you have to apply yourself and go and come up with opportunities to practice the application piece. You have to do it on your own. When you do that and then try to get feedback from someone or some kind of learnings from what it was that you did so you can understand what you did well, what you didn't, you can complete that loop. So that's the key for self-learning. If you just listen and you don't try to understand how to apply what you heard, then you're not going to get anything out of those lectures or those books at all. So that is the key. And that is it. I'm done. You folks know where to find me. The podcast, Twitter, LinkedIn, the YouTube channel, the UX Chit Chat Hour, which will be Friday next week. The next UX Chit Chat Hour is Friday.
Yeah, Darren, I'm going to move back to us and take away the slide on the screen. Anne wants to know if you have a resource list besides the book list.
I actually currently don't. Not currently. I did one some years ago where I talked about tools. I had it separated, and I decided to I just pulled it. And all I have now is the book recommendation list. I'll probably do something like that again in the not too distant future, but I'm going to hold off on showing certain tools because there's too many tool-centric mindsets in UX today. And there's too many people who think that UX is the tools and they don't realize tools are just tools. So I'll publish something about that. One of the things I have done is talk about a PLN, or how to establish your own personalized learning network. I did do an episode on that on my podcast that talks about how critical that is. That's critical for self learners, actually, and not only self learners, but just to manage your own career in UX. That plus the UX cycle of excellence, those two things together really help you to drive and manage where you are in your career and how to always continuously take next steps. But beyond those, no, I haven't done anything else. Yeah.
Okay, we've got 3 questions in the chat. The first one was from Javier, who says, what do you think about the Interaction Design Foundation courses?
The Interaction Design Foundation used to be the keeper. I always saw them as the keeper. That was one place. That encyclopedia of HCI is a phenomenal resource. And for anybody who's just starting out, I highly recommend immersing in that resource. They have, I'm going to say, fallen on hard times here recently. I was actually just asked to do a master class, and I'm still deliberating about whether or not I'm going to do that. I don't know. Debbie said no. Because
they need
I've
you
seen,
more than you need them.
I'm torn. I said I'd love to do it, and then I'm struggling. So sorry, IDF folks. You see this and you go, wait, but you said, yeah, I said, but I'm having second thoughts, and but I will say, for the most part, they still have all that great content that was out there 5 years ago is still there. And good UX content has a very long shelf life. And there is no more inexpensive, no more economical way for somebody to learn about some of the basics of user experience. The problem today is now they're pushing things about design thinking, and they're doing some other things that they didn't used to do. I wish they wouldn't do that. I used to be the director of IDF's Detroit chapter, and I had to pull out for this due to time constraints. But I was really shocked to see some of the things, and sadly, IDF, UXPA, some of the other associations, they could be doing more for the discipline. I'm calling them all out right now, and they're not. IXDF is some of the stuff that they share on LinkedIn is absolutely ghastly. So be careful with the association. They should be doing more, but they're not. So.
And Darren, we have 2 more questions. Can you stay a little late today?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, thanks. So we'll make sure we get those in. Anne asks, as someone who loves free or cheap school and classes, what are things to look for on something like Udemy that are signs you're getting legit content?
I think it's our old equation. Look to see who the person is who's behind it. This was funny. Go and look them up on LinkedIn. Look at their profile to see if they have a legit background in UX. Many people who are producing content don't. Asterisk. There are some people who do have what appears to be a legitimate background in UX, but I know some of them to be trolls. I know some of them to only be monetizing the sensationalism and doomsaying. And that's why you have to look at people's activity. What kind of things are they saying? What kind of things are they actually teaching? What kind of things? Somebody on LinkedIn today said, Darren, you said everything, that most of the stuff on Medium is pure garbage. Can you tell me what is good? The stuff I usually talk about. But you obviously didn't look at any of my content. I share the content all the time. I point people to Debbie. I point people to Dr. Nick. I point people to Dr. Ari. I point people to Joe. I point people to the content all the time. That is a standard way that people try to invalidate seniors. Sadly, the person who did that, guess where they teach?
Uh-oh.
Career Foundry.
Ouch.
So when you see that kind of activity where people are trying to incite things, it's a little bad. So look up the person who is on Udemy or whatever. Look up to see, and don't just say, okay, well, they've got 20 years. That's not
Of
enough.
what?
Yeah, 20 years of what? Or people like, the lean UX author has not worked in UX in at least 10 years. So I mean, and the way that we work has changed. And I don't mean for the good. I started saying that UX was under siege in 2011. So people have been trying to basically turn UX into something it's not for over a decade now. There are still people who insist on doing real UX work. But when you have people who are trying to point you into the direction of where you need to go when it comes to the discipline, but they're themselves not doing the work anymore, can they really relate to what you're doing? I find that hard to find comfort in things like that. The sneezes.
Yeah, I built a mute button while you were doing your slides. Quickly, Milky Drops is asking, can you recommend any good associations? We're not totally hot on IDF, UXPA, IXDA. Are there any good associations out there?
I think that there's one. I'm trying the ACM.
Who dat?
The Association for Computing Machinery. They have a UX chapter. There's some good content there. Could they be doing more for the discipline? Yes. That's going to be the hard part. The assist, ASIS_T, still has some good content, but they're not very active. So we've got a problem in UX that the organizations that could do more really just aren't. And that's something that it'll probably take 10 years to fix. It'll probably take 10 years to fix. I am working with an organization. I don't think I told Debbie about this, but I'm working with an organization where we're talking about achieving licensing for the discipline.
European guys?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm working with the European guys.
Yep, and that's good. So that that needs to be done, because if you look up the history, say, of the accounting discipline, where they had people that were running around claiming to be accountants and they weren't, and when a business brought in an accountant and they didn't know what they were doing, it would destroy the business. The same thing is happening today with UX. Unskilled UX people are going into companies, getting hired in roles, and doing a lot of damage. And it's actually costing companies a lot of their brand experience, a lot of their brand goodwill. They're losing it because they've got unqualified people doing the work. So when that happened, back with accounting, the CPA was established. And so then people could bring in people that were validated. We're expecting the same exact thing to impact UX the same way. And the sad thing today is that legit UXers are being thrown on their heads because we're a threat to a lot of these posers, retrofits, and upstarts. So I mean, we can't achieve this soon enough, but it's going to take a little time. But now we're already in touch.
I'll have to ask you about that behind the scenes, because I'm working with some people in Europe on that. And what I like about what they're doing is there's no multiple choice test. They validate you in other ways.
Yep. Yeah, because multiple choice,
no.
There's a place for that, and certification is not for them. And the open book, people say, well, Darren, what about NNG? NNG's test used to be different, and it used to be proctored, is my understanding. It's open book. You could go to, and they make you, it's a cash cow because they make you take X number of classes, then that qualifies you to take the certification. You could actually go sign up for the class, never go to any class, take the test with the book and pass the test. I've met people who have passed their certification test that I would not want to work with again in my life. They don't know what they're doing. So those certifications don't carry any weight anymore.
I agree.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I agree. I don't love their pedagogy. I don't love what they're teaching, and so I don't really care about NNG's certifications. Well, our last question is from Anthony, who says, "Are there ways to get honest statistics on ROI and job placement after a degree program? Can we trust the schools? Are there other resources, or is the decision an exercise in faith and grit?"
That's a great question. You can trust the institutions. The institutions do keep data on how many of their grads are being placed. They know because they have to sell. If they don't sell the school on the viability of that program, that program's going to get shut down. Some UX programs have been shut down at different schools because they were no longer considered to be viable by the institution. So that data is available. The sad part is, so there's two sides of that coin. The sad part is that that data is not readily available. Other people have to conduct surveys to try to confirm that data. Um, there are you can see top 10 lists, which UX universities or programs are the best and which universities are they at. I have seen a lot of these sites, and see, again, you gotta look to see who's putting them together, because I've seen people who don't have a horse in the race trying to tell you which schools are the best, which is why earlier, I bombarded you with my credentials, because I've seen it. I'm there. I know it. I know some of the schools. I know schools that are, my recent talk on UX maturity called for higher UX maturity in educational and academia, because a lot of them are trying to run programs, and programs are actually trying to run. They do not have experienced UX people helping them put their programs together. And some of them are running experienced UXers out of their programs. And they're still trying to. I worked at a program once where the person was trying to, I'm saying this, I know it's gonna be on the recording, but it needs to be said and heard. I taught for a program, and the person who took the program over was interested in bringing in all of their buddies that graduated from they got their PhD from another program. They did not have interest in skilled people working and teaching in the program. So he approached me about, because I was doing my lectures from the hip. I was doing live lectures, and I was doing them from the hip. I had an outline, but I was doing it from the hip. He wanted me to document everything and put everything in a slideshow. And I knew that the reason he was doing it was because of his plan to bring in his buddies and have us produce the content, and have the people who didn't know what the content was teach it. And I questioned it because I knew what his motive was. Not because I don't have a problem, or I have a problem putting together the presentations, but because I knew that the motive was corrupt. And then he got mad at me and started saying that I had a problem, lying on me, and saying that I had a problem putting together. Oh, I guess that's why I went to UCLA and did the same exact thing. I don't have a problem. You can see I don't have a problem putting together a deck. I've been putting together presentations for the last 40 something years. I've been in corporate America since 1982, but I've been around long enough to see, I know what a snake smells like. And when somebody does that kind of thing, and that person has no experience in UX, none of his buddies have any experience in UX, but that's what a lot of institutions are doing. And when they do that, their learning experience is going to go in the toilet. So
Yes.
can we institutions? You can trust them in general, but we have some problems in academia. I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
how it
and the
branded.
boot camps, I don't think you can trust, because the boot camps that, Darren's made a few references to people who are hired by boot camps because they graduated a week ago, and he's not being He's not exaggerating. He's not being wacky. The boot camps do these things often to boost their numbers on how many people have jobs. I put out the uncomfortable theory that they're going to hire the not as good people from the previous class because the good people might get jobs. So they'll hire the not as good people from the previous class to show that some people got jobs. And so you end up with these people who just graduated this boot camp and all of a sudden they're a teaching assistant or a mentor or a career advisor or
Yeah.
who knows what. They've never worked in UX, and the boot camp is just trying to make their numbers look good, that they put a lot of people into jobs. But the question is, what percentage of those people went back to their old job? What percentage of those people ended up working for you? What percentage of those people, I've even seen them count people
Yep.
who had a 2-week freelance job as, oh, they got hired, they got a job. But then 2 weeks later, that person was looking for a job and they had trouble finding one. So I think you can't, I would imagine the academic ones are a little bit more honest, but I've found the boot camps generally to be dishonest about these employment
Yeah.
rates.
Very dishonest. And you just reminded me of something else too. That a lot of times, for those of you that don't know, when a person graduates from a boot camp, if they say that they tell people that you should say that you're freelancing, what they don't tell people is that, talking about the refunds, if you say you're freelancing, you're no longer eligible for a refund.
Yeah, I covered that in the video we did here. Yeah, I have a 10-minute video somewhere on the channel. Maybe search for the word Delta CX refund. And I went through one of the boot camp's contracts and I said, here's all the reasons they can give you to not follow through on the job guarantee. And we've talked about them on the channel before. Some of them are quite weird. Like, you must add a certain number of people to your LinkedIn network every day, and you must go to a certain number of in-person networking groups, which weren't happening because of COVID. And you must get a certain number of job interviews, not by applying, but through personal connections. And then what ends up happening is Darren and I get all of these desperate LinkedIn requests from strangers who are like, please get me a job, please interview me. And I'm like, I'm not even hiring. And it just leads to people being desperate or wanting to manipulate things. And so, don't assume that if you take a course you don't like, you're going to get your money back. If anybody's following me on LinkedIn, I took a course with Service Design Network. I took part of it. It was so bad I dropped out of it. And I thought my credit card company would stand behind me, but they said, well, we can't stand behind you because the course claims to be non-refundable. And I said, yeah, I understand it's non-refundable, but it was bait and switch. What the webpage says they're going to teach was not what they taught. I never would have signed up for the course if they were honest about what it was. And they said, we can't do anything when the terms say non-refundable. So you can't just assume that a credit card company or somebody is going to stand behind you. Thank you, Gyros. I don't know how to pronounce you, but thank you very much. That's beautiful. Please leave an Amazon review for my book. I need all the help I can get. Darren, we should wind it up. We're 15 minutes late, so give us some parting final words.
Okay, one other quick note, and then one other closing word for Anthony. The closest you're going to get to that data you're looking for is like a state of UX survey. They'll cover things like that sometime with regard to trying to understand college grad versus job placement. How many people who got the jobs, how many of them have college degrees? You may find some of that information there. But from a closing word perspective, folks, education, when you sign up to be a UXer, you are signing up to lifelong learning. So make it a point that you always learn, whether you are, even if you already have a degree, if you went to a boot camp, whatever it might, it doesn't matter how you learned, we still consider learning. And make sure that you apply critical thinking. Don't just embrace something because it says UX and think that it has value. A lot of content that's being produced does not have any value at all. People are just trying to be seen. They're trying to have a presence. They're trying to attain some level of celebritism. So evaluate the sources. Can you actually, I'm thinking about Debbie's graphic now. Is it actionable? Is it that graphic? please, is it actionable? Is it meaningful? Is it helpful? And I throw another one on there. Is it accurate? Because if it's not accurate and you try to make it actionable, meaningful, or helpful, you're operating in delusion and you're digging a ditch for yourself. And we don't want to see that. We'll be there to help pull you out. I will try to when I see people in ditches, I try to pull them out. If they start biting me, I leave them in the ditch. But I will try to help people get out of the ditch because I do think that our community, we need to help one another. We need to pick one another up. But those who are up and coming, stand on the shoulders of people who have some height. You can't stand on your own shoulders, and you shouldn't stand on the shoulders of somebody who's not very tall. Not if you're trying to get somewhere. So that was my closing words.
All right. Beautiful. Beautifully done. Thank you, Darren, for giving us some of your time today. Great presentation and content and information, and you're getting some more thanks. And yeah, so I'm going to play us out of here. And quick note on the show, tomorrow is not critical thinking. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about Karin's portfolio and why I was so impressed by it, because I do a lot of portfolio reviews, and unfortunately I'm rarely impressed by them. So since I found one I was impressed by, I want to show everybody what I liked about it. Oh, Ana Lucio, you were trying to wrap up the show and you're asking questions. Can I add that to Tuesday's office hours? I think I'm going to just add that one to Tuesday's office hours, and we'll talk about that then in more depth. We're already late. Darren, thanks again for coming. We're going to have to say goodbye, but hopefully we'll see you soon on the show. Thanks. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are